I've always believed that endings arrive quietly. Not like explosions, not like storms, not like sudden accidents. Real endings seep in slowly, like water through the cracks of a foundation you thought was solid. They whisper before they scream. They warn before they wound. And if you're like me, raised in silence, you ignore that whisper until it's too late to pretend you didn't hear it. My name is Elias, and this is the story of how I lost the woman I loved before I even realized she was slipping away. But to understand that ending, you have to understand the beginning. My beginning. Because couples don't fall apart suddenly. We unravel from the inside out. I grew up in Pietermaritzburg, in a small house that smelled like sunlight, soap, and old furniture. We weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. We lived in that middle space where you have just enough to survive, but not enough to breathe. My father, Joseph, was a man of discipline. A man who believed love was structure, provision, and silence. He wasn't cruel. He was distant. He existed beside us, not with us. He loved through presence, not affection. He showed care through responsibility, not emotion. Every morning he woke up before dawn, boiled water, read the newspaper, ate in silence, went to work, came home, said little, slept early. That was his rhythm, and we were expected to fit into it. Talking during dinner felt like interrupting something sacred. Showing fear felt like weakness. Showing sadness was unthinkable. Crying? Unacceptable. The only time I ever saw him raise his voice was when I asked too many questions. "Life doesn't owe you explanations," he'd say. "Just keep going." My mother, Nora, was the opposite. She was all emotion, but none of it was meant for expression. You could see worry living behind her eyes, tightening her shoulders, shaping her movements. She cleaned like it was a form of prayer. She cooked to feel useful. She folded laundry like she was folding her anxieties into something manageable. Her love was in her hands, not her voice. So I grew up learning that emotions were things you manage privately. Pain was something you carry alone. Love was something you proved, not something you said. That's the boy I was. That's the man I became. A man who endured quietly. A man who thought stillness was strength. A man who mistook emotional numbness for maturity. Then came Naledi. We met at a corporate year-end function I didn't even want to attend. I hate crowds. I hate networking. I hate the artificial cheerfulness workplaces force you into. I stood near the food table, pretending to be deeply fascinated by sausage rolls so I wouldn't have to talk to anyone. Then I heard it, her laugh. Warm, bright, shamelessly joyful. It cut through the noise and landed right in my chest. I looked up and saw her. Black dress, curly hair brushed behind one ear, eyes full of fire and mischief. She walked into the room like she had risen from the ashes of something that once tried to break her. People moved closer to her without even realizing they were doing it. She caught me staring. Instead of turning away, she smiled. This bold, teasing smile that made me forget how to breathe. A few minutes later, she walked straight toward me. "Why do you look like you're being held hostage?" she asked. I didn't even try to lie. "Because I am," I said. She laughed, this loud, unapologetic laugh that made me want to hear it again. We ended up talking for hours. We talked about childhoods shaped by wounds we didn't yet understand. We talked about dreams stitched together from fear and hope. We talked about life like two people who had been waiting to meet each other for a long time. She told me she loved my calmness, my steadiness, the way I listened without trying to fix her. I told her she made the world feel less heavy, less predictable, less gray. Our connection was instant, but intensity is a dangerous illusion. When you're broken in certain places, you mistake emotional sparks for destiny. Wounded people bond fast because they recognize familiar shadows in each other. We fell in love quickly, moved in together, got married, and for a while, everything felt right. Naledi brought color into my structured world. Spontaneity, warmth, laughter. Chaos sometimes, but beautiful chaos. She pushed me to open up, to communicate, to express emotions I didn't even know I had words for. I gave her stability, consistency, safety, a home she could rely on. But love is rarely balanced perfectly. Someone gives more emotionally. Someone gives more materially. Someone speaks loudly. Someone silently. Eventually, those differences create friction. The cracks started small, invisible at first. A sigh here, a dry, okay, there, a missed hug, a forgotten kiss, a conversation that didn't reach the depth she hoped for. Then my work hours increased. Deadlines, late nights, pressure. I told myself I was doing it for us, for our future, for stability. But in chasing tomorrow, I stopped showing up for today. One night, I came home exhausted. She was lying on her stomach on the bed, feet in the air, laughing at her phone. She said, "Hey," without looking up. It was small, but it hurt. A small puncture in a balloon you don't realize is losing air. Her phone became her new world. Notifications lit up her face more than my presence did. Our conversations became shallow. Her laughter started belonging somewhere else. She started dressing up more when going out, started smelling different, started staying out later. Girls' night. Work event. Just drinks. But her eyes told different stories. Eyes never lie, even when words do. Then came the moment I couldn't ignore. I walked past the study and saw her laptop screen light up. A calendar reminder popped up. Dinner, 7 p.m. Don't forget. She later told me she was working late. I didn't confront her, didn't ask questions, didn't accuse. Instead, I swallowed the truth because that's what men like me are taught to do. But silence isn't strength. Silence is surrender. That night, I called Sizwe, my oldest friend. He listened quietly, then said something that stuck with me. When the energy changes, don't chase it. Observe it. Protect yourself. So I stopped rationalizing, stopped giving benefit of the doubt, stopped convincing myself things would go back to normal. I watched. Not like a detective, but like a man preparing his heart for impact. Then one Friday evening she came home early, too early. Hair tied back, face unlit, energy heavy. She was trembling slightly, the way someone trembles before delivering a truth that will change everything. We ate dinner in silence. Halfway through, she said,
Elias,
"Elias, we need to talk."
we need to talk.
My stomach tightened, my jaw clenched, but my face stayed calm, years of conditioning shaping me even in disaster. She said she needed space, time, distance, clarity. Words that sound soft, but cut deep. I listened, quietly, painfully, respectfully. Then I said, "If that's what you need, I won't stand in your way." She looked shocked, almost offended. She expected tears, shouting, questions. She expected me to fall apart. She expected a scene that would justify her exit. But she found calmness, stillness, acceptance. Not because I didn't care, but because when you've been sensing the truth for months, hearing it out loud doesn't surprise you. It just confirms the death you've already grieved in silence. That night, after she went to sleep in the other room, I sat alone in the living room. Lights off, phone silent, heart fractured. I realized something brutal. I wasn't just losing her. I was losing myself. The version of me who always swallowed pain. The version who thought endurance was love. The version who avoided conflict because I witnessed too much of it. The version who never learned how to fight for himself emotionally. I remembered something my father once said, on one of the rare days he spoke honestly. The hardest thing a man can do is stop lying to himself. That night, I stopped lying. About her. About us. About me. I realized I had ignored the signs because confronting them meant confronting my own patterns, my own wounds, my own silence, my own fear of abandonment, my own habit of shrinking myself to keep the peace. The sky began to lighten outside, a dull gray slowly slipping into soft gold. Morning had arrived, and with it, clarity. I stood up, breathed deeply, and made a quiet promise to myself. I will not collapse. I will not beg. I will not chase. I will not sacrifice myself to keep someone else comfortable. I will not lose myself again. I will observe. I will rebuild. I will heal. I will return to myself. Because sometimes, the moment before everything falls apart is the moment you finally start becoming who you were meant to be. But the truth is, that night wasn't just an ending. It was a mirror. A mirror I had avoided my entire life. A mirror that forced me to face the man I had become, the boy I still was, and the wounds I thought I had outgrown. When she closed that bedroom door behind her, it wasn't just her stepping away from me. It was the universe stripping away every layer of comfort I had wrapped myself in, every illusion, every excuse, every borrowed belief about masculinity my father had unknowingly handed me. I sat there in the dark, and for the first time, I didn't try to distract myself. I didn't stand up to wash dishes. I didn't scroll through my phone. I didn't tell myself, it's not that bad. I allowed myself to feel everything. The shame, the anger, the disbelief, the disappointment in myself, the disappointment in her. The quiet humiliation of realizing I had missed the signs because I wanted to believe we were unbreakable. But as the minutes stretched into hours, the emotional storm slowly shifted. Not into peace, not yet, but into clarity. Because once the emotional fog lifts, you start asking different questions. Not, why is she doing this? But, what did I ignore? Not, what did I do wrong? But, what did I tolerate? Not, why did she stop loving me? But, why did I stop loving myself enough to see this coming? These are the questions no one prepares you for. These are the questions no man wants to ask. Because the answers taste like truth, and truth tastes like medicine. Bitter at first, necessary in the end. I started replaying our relationship in my mind. Not the good memories, those are too easy to hold on to. I replayed the uncomfortable moments. The moments I brushed aside because I didn't want conflict. The moments I convinced myself were harmless. Like the time she said, I feel like you don't see me anymore. And instead of asking why, I kissed her forehead and went back to work. Or the time she cried because she felt alone in the relationship, and I told her she was overthinking it, a sentence I now realize was emotional negligence. Or the time she said she felt disconnected, and instead of opening up, I shut down further because vulnerability felt like stepping barefoot on broken glass. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't betray her. But I wasn't present. Not emotionally. Not the way she needed. An emotional absence can wound deeper than physical betrayal. But her actions weren't justified either. Needing more from me never gave her the right to seek emotional intimacy somewhere else. Feeling unseen never gave her the right to create a second life behind my back. Feeling disconnected never gave her the right to play both sides, the loyal wife at home and the free woman outside. The truth sits somewhere in the middle. She drifted because I withdrew, and I withdrew because I didn't know how to stay open without bleeding. I realized something that night. Relationships don't die because of one big mistake. They die from 1,000 small avoidances, 1,000 swallowed truths, 1,000 moments where someone feels alone while lying right next to you. As the sky began to lighten, I looked around my living room, and everything felt different. The couch, the TV, the photos on the wall, the plants she insisted on buying, the shoes she left by the door. It all looked familiar, but none of it felt like mine anymore. That's the thing people don't talk about. You can live in the same home after the emotional connection breaks, but it no longer feels like a home. It becomes a museum of a life that's slipping away. You become a visitor in your own space. Around 5 a.m., I stood up, walked to the bathroom, and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked older, tired, defeated. But beneath all of that, I saw something else. Something I hadn't seen in years. I saw a man who realized he'd abandoned himself long before she abandoned him. A man who had bent, folded, shrunk, and softened himself just to keep the peace. just to avoid conflict, just to preserve a relationship that was already drifting into the shadows. No more. That morning, I promised myself something I had never promised before. I will not betray myself ever again. Not for love, not for fear, not for nostalgia, not for the version of me that wants to go back to what was comfortable, not for the hope that she might change her mind. I realized something powerful. You can love someone deeply and still walk away with dignity. You can be heartbroken and still reclaim yourself. You can lose the relationship and still find your identity. The pain is real, but so is the awakening. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know what decisions she would make next. I didn't know whether this was temporary or permanent. But one thing was certain: I would rise. Slowly, quietly, deliberately. I would rebuild myself from the foundation up, not as the boy shaped by silence, but as the man shaped by truth. And that moment of honest self-awareness was the true beginning of everything that came next. That moment was the real start of my awakening. My name is Elias, and this was the moment, the painful, quiet, necessary moment, before everything fell apart.